Welcome to Rewiring Health. So honored to be joined by Greg Kuhn. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just talking, and what I love, and we're going to dive into here, is going to be something that I find fascinating myself, but I really think it's going to help many of you who are listening to see things from a different perspective. And what that is manifestation. And so I am, just like I said, fascinated with this. And I would love to know, how did you get into helping people cultivate this in their own life?
Great question. Kelly, I am a manifesting coach, and I answered a help wanted ad in the newspaper. I'm just kidding. I don't think anybody's advertising for a manifesting coaching position. In fact, I manifested that job, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know if manifesting sounds esoteric in 2024. Let's go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
If it does, I want to assure folks it's not esoteric at all. I base everything that I do on science, especially on quantum physics.
Mhm.
And what I get to do is I get to help people manifest better versions of reality. So this job is a blast.
Mhm.
Very fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you say the science part of it, because I think that is so huge, and that it's not mutually exclusive. It's not, spirituality and then science. They're very much integrated. And recognizing that there's a true validity to these things. And when you talk about quantum physics, absolutely. The more we are learning about it, the more we see like this is an actual science, and that actually exists. And I want to dive right into that. Can you talk about, for maybe someone, I mean, I think manifestation is pretty widely heard, but can you talk about what that actually is? Because I think we've heard the word, but maybe some people don't know exactly what that is.
Yes, great place to start.
Mhm.
Manifesting is something that each human does in every second of our lives. And Kelly, I like the way you introduced it with a reference to spirituality, a reference to self help. Sometimes people use the term woo woo
Mhm.
to talk about this genre, if you will, if we can call it self help. I like to think of it as personal growth, self empowerment. But one thing is not up for debate, and that is that we do manifest a unique version of reality. Of course, we call it life
Mhm.
in every moment of our lives. We possess a unique set of mechanisms that acts like a fulcrum and collapses the one field of energy. Sometimes we call that the quantum field. I also like to call it the one consciousness. Sometimes I call it God, and not to pigeonhole it with any sort of religious connotation, but we are collapsing the infinite potential of the one field of energy into discrete, we call them space-time events, unique entities, including ourselves and everything else that populates our life here in these four dimensions of space-time. We get to experience this grand, wonderful adventure that can sometimes become so frustrating and oftentimes, certainly, we know includes pain and disappointment.
Absolutely. No, I love that description. And one thing that just came into my head as you were talking about that is, like, so often we think like life is just happening to us. We're just here. We're just existing. We're kind of like a ping pong ball getting hit around. But what I love about manifestation is that you become the creator of your own destiny, and you get to choose what your life looks like. And that's what I think is one of the coolest things about it. And the more you understand about it, the more empowering that is, because I think so many of us relinquish our power to the circumstances, but we don't realize that we're actually holding the power the whole time. And can you talk about that a little bit more? Like, how do we actually manifest what's going on around us, good or bad? How does that actually happen?
That's a great question. And I do want to address the fact that as the source of our life, as the hearth of manifestation, of collapsing everything. So, like you said so correctly, Kelly, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Sometimes this can sound and feel a bit like a finger pointed toward us, and we say, "Well, Greg, you are the source of your life. You are manifesting a unique version of your life in each moment." Well, what about all the bad stuff? Because I'm sure I am not alone in this, that my life is not a constant upward trajectory. If that's a real word, I just made it up, trajectory. No, that is a real word. My life is not a constant series of successes. So how is this happening? Well, we, Kelly, we are still energy. This table, and you can't see me knocking on it, but if everyone can reach out wherever they're listening, in the car or sitting in their living room, and grab hold of something solid, you're not actually touching anything. We can't touch anything because everything, including the finger that is doing the touching, is completely insubstantial. In fact, if we were to have the ability to immerse ourselves into the quantum world, and we became small enough that an atom, which of course everyone remembers, atoms make things, right? They're like the little Legos that build everything from our bodies to everything else in our life. So if we could get ourselves small enough that an atom was the size of Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, um, what would the atom look like? It would be invisible to us. It wouldn't exist to us. Well, wait a minute, Greg. That atom's as big as Yankee Stadium. How could it be invisible? That is because an atom is 99.999% empty space or energy, right? The nucleus of the atom in that Yankee Stadium size example is the size of a fly inside Yankee Stadium. So what we're made of is nothing. What we're made of is energy. In fact, it's really not even correct to say we're made of energy. We are energy. We are energy that is, for some reason, cooperating, forming a system called Kelly and Greg and everyone else listening. But we can still see that it's all energy. Because we can utilize lasers, we can see that there's no such thing as a stationary solid object. And we're not talking about the movement of the planet creating movement, or outside agitation causing movement. We can see that every solid object is constantly in motion, including our bodies, because it is energy. So why is it that we get to experience this amazing thrill ride called life, called being human? And hopefully we ride it for a long, long time. Well, we seem to possess a certain je ne sais quoi. We might call it consciousness. We don't know exactly what else possesses consciousness, but as we know that each of us individually does, and we can certainly make a good assumption that all other humans do as well. And we have a biological mechanism that allows us to create meaning. Well, you know what, Kelly, not just create meaning, because what we manifest by manifesting life, we manifest the form, the function, the meaning, and the value of everything. And quantum physics is very clear about something. It sends an incredibly clear message to us as human beings, and that is, and this might sound kind of strange, but it's good news, okay? We are not actually to blame for the bad things, okay? We're not to blame for those things. We're responsible for fixing what's to blame if We want to manifest a life that is more aligned with our desires, but we're not responsible for the bad stuff. So smile and know that however frustrating any part of your life is, there is no such thing as impossible.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like one thing I want to kind of go back just to clarify, because I think something that I've found, like I'm very interested in this topic, so I've learned a lot. But I think one thing as I've learned that was confusing to me, and I would love to hear your perspective to clarify, is that if this table in front of us is really a table, and then you have four people in this room, how do we all experience the table as the same if it's our perspective? Or how do we experience life as it is if it's all different perspectives and meanings, even though we say that's a tree, that's so can you talk about how we're experiencing this energy, everything is energy, but how do we experience this energy in a way that it doesn't feel so much like it's concrete, like this is a table, what are you telling me, this is just energy, I think that sometimes can feel, what does that mean,
Right. Well, the dictionary definition of manifesting, I like to go back and remind myself, is to see and to understand something. And we need both of those things to manifest, life, right? It's not enough for me to just understand. I also need to see. And likewise, it's not enough just for me to see. I need to understand. And especially when I want it to be a certain way. We do make assumptions, Kelly, uh, that other people are experiencing reality in the same way that we are. Now, we certainly know, there's no doubt, we absolutely accept and understand that reality is subjective. Um, take a piece of low hanging fruit like politics. Obviously, you and I could look at the same political candidate, and we see two completely different realities, right? And we know that. What gets lost sometimes is that we can extend that illustration into even the most practical things. Like, for example, the book behind me is blue. Well, I see blue, you see blue, anyone else who's watching, but do we all, we have no way of knowing what blue is to you and what blue is to me. What we do is we come to some common agreements. And of course, there's also the matter of that there are millions and, well, billions of other consciousness possessing time space events, or maybe we call them human beings, simpler term, but there are billions of other human beings who are also doing the very same thing, meaning each of us has the ability to create or manifest something that didn't exist prior. Each of us has the ability to create or manifest something that already existed. And that's what we're doing each day. We have a common agreement, if you will. Um, Sometimes those agreements are of a general nature, while other times they're more specific. It of course it depends on you know what we imbibed as a youngster, what beliefs we inherited as a youngster. Uh, but we're all pretty attuned at manifesting the same things. Uh, well, gosh, I mean, just think about that example. Well, I remember being at a baseball. One of my sons played high school baseball, and at one of his games, the umpire called a strike on one of his team's hitters, and I thought, oh, strike three, he's out. Only the play resumed. The catcher threw the ball back to the pitcher, and I looked around at the crowd, and I thought, the umpire didn't know that was strike two. The umpire wasn't keeping count accurately. And I looked around, I'm like, nobody else knows that was strike two. I'm not going to say anything. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, wait a minute. I'm the only one. Oh, I know what happened. I was wrong, you know? And it's a silly story,
Mhm.
but life is a lot like that. It not only do we all try hard to fit in, why wouldn't we? I mean, we also have a lot of external pressure to fit in, if you will. So when we look at the table or we look at the tree, and I am manifesting a tree, well, if it's already been established that there's a tree there, and there's, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here because there's a whole new field emerging in that's very tied to quantum physics called epigenetics
Mhm.
that begins to explain how information is transferred from the quantum field to human beings because we've exhausted our ability to explain a priori knowledge, which is simply a term for knowledge that was already there.
Mhm.
And in our case, we don't know how it got here. Uh, well, we've exhausted the limits of genetics to explain it. And we're now looking at epigenetics, which says that we have various portals, if you will, in our physical system that plug right in to the quantum field. And that helps to, now, that is helping to explain things like how do the cells of my heart know how to be a heart cell versus the cells in my tongue knowing to be a tongue cell, and so on and so forth. Well, we're receiving and passing information constantly. But the short answer is there's a lot of agreement that we knowingly and unknowingly engage
Mhm. Yeah.
in every moment.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that explanation. And I want to dive right into really how do we do this? Because I think that's what people want to know. Like, it's like, okay, I have this life. I want to change in my life. I want a big change in my life. And, I've heard the term quantum leap. This is something that it sounds really, fascinating. And, maybe that's someone who's listening and they're like, how do I actually do this in my life? Could you like walk us through how does someone start to do that in their life to actually create those big leaps in life?
Absolutely. Well, let's start by setting a baseline here, and that is I mentioned that we are not responsible, that you are not responsible for the bad things in your life. And the reason I say that is because what manifests our life is our beliefs. Our beliefs are manifesting the form, the function, the meaning, and the value of our reality in every moment. Well, when I reference beliefs, we're not talking about our conscious thoughts, the things we think about each day. We're not talking about the things we've learned as adults and the views that we now want to hold, which are enlightened by and
Mhm.
large. What I'm referencing are the beliefs we inherited up through age, let's say age 8. Uh, Prior to age 8, uh, we didn't have the ability to discern. We didn't have the ability to pick and choose. We inherited everything that our primary caregivers had to give us. Well intentioned people. I'm a primary caregiver of 4 myself, so I'm fulfilling this legacy, if you will. Well intentioned people who did their best, and yet at the end of the day, could only pass along what they themselves had inherited. So we inherit beliefs from our primary caregivers up through age 8, and then we go out into the world as adults, and those beliefs are manifesting our reality still today because they all get stored in our subconscious. We have this mechanism of the most primitive parts of our brain, and those beliefs are stored away in a place that doesn't speak English. It doesn't even use word-based communication. It doesn't use logic. It can't understand words. And it certainly does not jibe with emotions that are too different from what's already in there. So that term quantum leap is an exciting term. And that's a real thing that happens in the quantum world, because in the quantum world, there's no such thing as cause and effect. That does not exist. So there's never anything that you have to do to make something else happen, except we don't live in the quantum world. Even though we're still a part of it, we're living here in these 4 dimensions. And here, there is cause and effect. So how do those two things jibe? And this relates to, how do we move forward and take action and become a more intentional manifester of our life? Well, we don't ever have to do anything to make something else happen, technically speaking. However, there are definitely times, and we've all experienced this, where we do need to do some things in order to believe that something can happen for us, in order to believe that we can manifest. We don't have any issues with believing that we can manifest life, we can manifest our body, we can manifest the ability to talk, all these things that we can do that we never have to give a second thought to. These are all facilitated by beliefs we inherited that are proving to be capable, right? That are proving to be successfully implemented as an adult. However, when life becomes frustrating, disappointing, even painful, which it inevitably does for all of us, those experiences that we're manifesting, those experiences are the shadows of beliefs we inherited that are now proving to be incapable of manifesting a version of life that matches up with our desires for it. So, knowing this, knowing that beliefs are more powerful than actions. We all know, Kelly, many times in our life, actions, I was about to say many times in our life, actions are necessary. Actions are just a part of being human, aren't they? They cannot, however, supersede our beliefs. So I like to differentiate a little bit between longer lasting problems that we've been experiencing for a longer period of time, maybe even most of our adult lives, versus just, let's say we're off track, right? We normally are being successful, but we've gotten off track. And I think those two, that's a good line of differentiation when people are putting these things into action.
Yeah. As far as the belief, because this can feel like, all right, how do I start to change my beliefs, especially when they were established very young and we've carried them and most of our life we're even unaware of them. How do we start to change those beliefs so they actually can work for us and start to reprogram some of those things that haven't served us?
Well, right. Because if we can't change the beliefs, all I'm doing is telling you some bad news.
Yes, yes.
uh, we know that thinking differently and acting differently and being different in the direction of the life we desire is never a mistake. Those things are never going to make our lives worse. In fact, they're usually going to make them better. So certainly when the misalignment, if you will, between my beliefs and my desired reality, if it's not too great, or if I've simply gotten off track, um, we know some very reliable ways of manifesting different versions of reality. And I know, Kelly, that you yourself have practices like that. In fact,
Yeah.
very rarely do I encounter a client who doesn't have many practices
Mhm.
that work in that regard for them.
Yeah.
What bedevils us as humans, as we all know, is when we, gosh, it's like there's sometimes it feels like a glass ceiling,
Mhm.
especially when it's in an important part of our life: career,
Mhm.
health, love, money, fitness, family, relationships, parts of our lives where no matter how hard we try to act like we don't care, and I'm speaking from personal
Mhm.
experience here, there are simply parts of my life that are too integral to my fulfillment as a human being. I just can't successfully divorce myself from caring.
Mhm.
And when frustration becomes suffering, it's time to do something about it.
Mhm.
Fortunately, our subconscious operates on a low wall security system, which means, yes, it is secure from sudden whims,
Mhm.
from strong bursts of emotion that are tied to context or tied to an event where we might not feel quite so strong a day later. It's safeguarded against those sorts of willy nilly changes because it doesn't speak word based language, because it doesn't utilize logic, because it doesn't recognize emotions that are too different from what's already in there. We can't whip up a new reality just because we have a really strong feeling. And
Mhm.
and by and large, I think that's a good thing.
Mhm.
Even though it would be fun sometimes to
Mhm.
be a genie, I think ultimately,
Yeah.
we've seen enough stories to know that we get ourselves in trouble, right? Be careful
Mhm.
what you wish for. But it does, the security is low enough that as long as we speak, as long as we're emotionally honest with our subconscious,
Mhm.
we can absolutely get access to it. And if as long as we don't ask our subconscious to jump right up to love and ecstasy from
Mhm.
where we currently are, that's the type of quantum leap we don't want to ask of our subconscious,
Mhm.
simply because it won't be successful. It's not going to be willing to sacrifice its primary job, which is to keep us alive and safe,
Mhm.
in the service of making us happy in the moment. It's not going to do that.
Right. Is that what you talk about when you say emotionally honest with our subconscious? That if we're experiencing like fear or shame or guilt, we have to say, yes, I'm experiencing this. And that's that honesty. Is that what you're referring to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Kelly, you are doing a great job of
Thank you.
helping people focus on health and achievement.
Mhm.
And I am in fact, I was going to say I'm a huge proponent, but I need to go a step further in what I teach people to do in my books and my coaching podcasts, different ways that I have to spread the gospel
Mhm.
of intentional manifestation.
Mhm.
Uh, feelings, feelings are a breadcrumb trail
Mhm.
back to limiting beliefs. I mean, they guide us right back to our limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So, and the way to find that breadcrumb trail, the only way to find it consistently, is to process our feelings. And as you know, processing feelings is huge for our mental and emotional and physical health. So that's key.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is absolutely huge. Unfortunately, I think so many people are just going so quickly and trying to get through life that they don't ever pause enough to do that. Like I know I've been guilty of that plenty of times in my life. It's like, okay, on to the next thing. But you're completely right. You have to take those moments and process it and be authentic with yourself and recognize how you're actually feeling in the moment and that it's okay to feel like that. Yeah, 100%. With manifestation, one thing I want to dive into, can you talk about some common misconceptions that people often have with manifestation? Like they think this, but it's actually not true. Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Two things that come to mind right away. One misconception, and it's very natural. I fall for it all the time. because of the close association.
Mhm.
But feelings are not the source of our reality.
Mhm.
Uh, we don't manifest what we're feeling. What we're feeling elicits, I'm sorry, what we're manifesting elicits what we're feeling.
Mhm.
And feelings are they're our feedback loop. Feelings are always letting us know whether or not the inherited beliefs we bring into the moment are capable of manifesting a version of reality that aligns with what we truly desire here. And of course, the intensity of the feeling is letting us know how in or out of alignment those beliefs are. So feelings, I say this is a misconception because I run into a lot of people who are scared of their negative feelings. I don't enjoy painful feelings, so I'm not seeking them out.
Mhm.
However, I also know that feeling them and processing them and learning from them will not solidify the reality that's producing them.
Mhm.
And doing, feeling and processing and learning from it is not making those feelings real. It's not breathing life into them. It's not making the reality that's eliciting them stationed in concrete. I'm simply learning. In fact, a really good question to ask when negative feelings, and Kelly, I want to make sure I say I'm not really talking about like if my dog dies today and I'm going to feel really sad and really alone and really lost. Um, I'm not suggesting that I should have beliefs that are capable of manifesting a reality where my dog doesn't die.
Mhm.
Nothing is impossible. And that's another misconception about manifesting different versions of reality. We tell ourselves, or we're all prone to tell ourselves, that this is a part of my life where I'm just going to have to accept that, you know, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, I don't have what I need. It's this isn't for me. So I'm gonna have to accept that less than what I really desire is just what it is.
Mhm.
And we justify and rationalize those things. I do it too. That is absolutely a misconception. There is no reason to take that tack when it comes to the most important things in our life. But I
Mhm.
also want to say that there's no reason to have expectations that I'm going to manifest a life that is all happiness, that is
Mhm.
all success. That is, there's maybe if I was the only person that existed, perhaps I could do that, but I don't
Mhm.
really want to live in a world like that.
Mhm.
So I think those are some misconceptions. Those are things that are good to go into the day with open eyes about.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And just having the permission that it's okay to have some of those lower energy states and lower emotions, because that is one thing that I feel like as I've learned that, like that was one thing I remember struggling with is that like I know the importance of having those higher energy vibrations for manifesting what you want in your life. And then like life happens and you're like, no, I can't be in this fear and guilt because it's going to ruin this whole manifestation thing. And so so I appreciate that you saying that it's okay to do that. It's not going to manifest what you have going on. And because again, it can be really easy to feel like, especially, for someone who's like a go-getter, high achiever, it's like you're doing all the right things. You don't want to be like knocked down. And now you're experiencing all these lower emotions and that now it like derails you for what you've been working for. So no, I really appreciate that aspect of it. As far as, maybe diving into that, if you are like, if life happens, something, maybe you lost your job, you get hit with an unexpected bill, whatever it is, and you are experiencing these low emotions, can you dive into what is the differentiator between like experiencing them, processing them versus getting stuck in them? And how do we move out of those ones? How do we know when we process them and we can move out of them versus we didn't process them or we're just staying in them?
Absolutely. And Kelly, I'm sure as a I've really enjoyed getting to know your content. I can see why, folks pay attention, that they want to hear what you have to say.
Thanks.
I would concur, and I'm sure that you have, in your own life, run into plenty of practices that allow you to successfully, navigate emotions and not dwell on them, if you will. Uh, when things happen the way we want, we feel good.
Mhm.
When things happen the way we don't want, we feel bad. And for the most part, I want to say there's no way around that. I just mean that's a general oversimplification of the experience of life. And we all know that. And it doesn't matter how successful you are in any part of your life, the more successful you become, the more your horizons broaden. And while it doesn't sound like a recipe for a fulfilling life to constantly be chasing, I agree. I find, as I'm sure you have, that when it comes to processing feelings, to recognizing uh, our highs and our lows,
Mhm.
um, it helps to know that one, we are not our feelings.
Mhm.
How we're feeling is not who we are. How we're feeling does not define us, right? In fact, I'll go a step further. I know you have worked with a lot of, I mean, your entire practice is based around working with high achievers. I wind up working with a lot of high achievers myself. And one of the defining characteristics of a high achiever, in my experience, is an ability and a willingness to be taught and informed by the life you manifest rather than be defined by the life you manifest. And one of life's great ironies I found is that when I don't feel and process my emotions. And there's always good reasons why I don't. And I'm certainly not going to poke fun at any of those reasons. When I don't feel and process my emotions, however, that's when they become who I am.
Mhm.
That's when they take up residence in my body. And that's when yes, they can then start to affect the life I'm manifesting.
Mhm.
They can that so if we want to do a callback, if you want your feelings to manifest your reality, don't process them, because they will become part of your body, they will become part of your mechanisms, and they will become part of your story in ways that they won't if you feel and process them. There's just so much fear about those scary emotions. And when as well as I do, when I don't process them for whatever reasons,
Mhm.
stuff, avoid, deny, distract,
Mhm.
uh, I don't learn. And by the way, those feelings, all of our feelings, every one of them, they are an individualized curriculum prepared for us by our life. They are a vital feedback loop that is written only for us to learn from and contains exactly what we need to learn. You know, I will say this, one way to learn, grow, and change, utilizing the feedback of feelings, and also one way to kind of turn the burner down a little bit in terms of how much we might be afraid of doing that. When I am feeling angry, disappointed, uh, regretful, we can go on and on, those
Yeah.
kinds of feelings.
Mhm.
I will ask myself, what must I believe about myself and my life to feel this way about it right now?
Mhm.
And I don't ask anyone else that question. I ask myself, and I answer it with the most emotional honesty that I can have in that moment. I'm not going to be graded on the answer, so I don't need to, I'm not under any scrutiny.
Mhm.
But the answer to that question, honestly answered, can give me some pause, and I say, well, if I'm like, I'll give you an example. I'm an avid runner,
Mhm.
and I was in my garage, which is my staging area. This was in November. I remember very distinctly. I was getting ready to leave, and it just occurred to me. It's probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh man, I have been feeling so much self-doubt today. And I've been going through my day, and I've been just really operating on a reasonable assumption based on past experiences that this was a fleeting feeling, that this was, it's not normally how I feel. It's not how I expect to feel. But it wasn't going away. And oh man, did I feel it? Well, I've felt this way before.
Mhm.
And I said, what must I believe about myself in my life to be feeling this way right now? And the answer to that is, well, there's no other explanation. I have this idea that I'm a fraud, that I'm not good enough, that I've run out of steam, and that I'm about to be exposed.
Mhm.
And is that true? Is that really? No. And I know that's not true. Um, so in this instance, I can, and I'm actually articulating my internal dialogue. I'm okay. I know that's not true. So in this instance, I can give myself some believable positive affirmations here.
Mhm.
I can remind myself that I don't normally feel this way, and that there are some hard data points, in reality, that I don't like about my work, feedback about my work, its lack of success in areas that I really want it to be successful. Those are real. And I'm not denying the disappointment or the frustration. I'm certainly not ignorant of the fact that I don't see the solution to them right now.
Mhm.
However, I also know, and this is true, I am working hard. I'm giving my best effort. Also, I know for a fact that I'm learning, growing, and changing in the direction of success. That is absolutely true. And I'm growth minded. I'm open to learn and become more successful. And I know I'm willing to put the effort behind that. And then lastly, I know that I've experienced success before. I've felt like this before, and it's me. I work hard. It's reasonable for me to keep working hard and have an expectation that there's probably some success following behind, and all of that. I wasn't giving myself some pie in the sky, uh, 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 you know, big tall tale. I was speaking the truth to myself. And I wasn't telling myself that everything was going to work out exactly the way I wanted. I was being direct with myself.
Mhm.
And at the same time, doing that, I like to think of it as life is like I'm sitting at a round table, a big round table. And in the center of the table, there's a bouquet of flowers, a centerpiece. And when I don't like my perspective of it, when I don't like what it is, how I'm manifesting it, we have two choices. I can get out there and I can move the floral arrangement itself,
Mhm.
and I can also scoot my chair over and get a different perspective. And both of those things are so powerful. What I would encourage folks to do, because successful people are, well, they're already well versed in the importance and the value of taking action. In fact,
Mhm.
we're in control of only four things. One of them is the actions we take. So moving that centerpiece around can be invaluable. Of course, we want to do that as we can, but you know what else we want to do? We want to move our seat at the table as we can. And when I gave myself those positive affirmations, I moved my seat at the table. I wasn't capable of getting in and changing the parts of my career that at the moment were not as successful as I wanted them to be. But I could change my seat at the table. Absolutely, I was in control. And that's what I did with those believable positive affirmations. And it's not going to surprise you one bit to hear that on the run, I went out and went on the run, that with that blockage gone, immediately I was just, oh yeah, of course, well, yeah, I should do this. I mean, they were there, the ideas that came to me, they were low hanging fruit. They weren't, rocket science, but from my former seat at the table, I wasn't manifesting a life where I saw and understood it that way.
I like that. I like the example too of the flowers because it just makes so much more sense. That's like you can change your perspective of it. But I also like that as your situation changes, it gives you different evidence of who you really are and how you actually are performing without the misconceptions that sometimes occur in our head that we're misinterpreting it. So I love that. And just the process that you took us through and how to do that, very obtainable to do that in your life, and it's just very like actionable, and I love that. And I think that's something that for anyone who's listening, like that's something you can do right now. Like we all experience those moments. Like never is there going to be a time where you don't have those moments come up where you have self-doubt or those negative emotions, but processing that and having a strategy in place for when they come up that actually does serve you is huge. So I really appreciate you taking us through that example because I think examples are just a wonderful way to learn it. So I love that. For someone who wanted to work with you and dive deeper into this, how can they find you and connect with you?
Thank you for asking, Kelly. My website is manifestthebigstuff.com.
Mhm.
And that's probably the easiest place to go
Mhm.
to get in contact with me for one-on-one coaching. I also have a brand new coaching program that I'm offering that you can check out
Mhm.
on my website as well. It's a life-changing coaching program. I love teaching people to manifest better versions of reality, especially, well, I don't think I've ever had an experience where I didn't get a thrill out of helping someone do that. This is my 9th book behind
Oh,
me.
wow. Oh my God.
You can certainly connect with them on my website. I also have a Facebook group called Manifest the Big Stuff with Greg Kuhn, creating our reality together.
Mhm.
And that's a great place to go as well. Certainly, no, that's a free website. I share exclusive content through the Facebook group, so that's another avenue as well to connect with me.
Yeah, great. And I'll make sure everything's in the show notes. So if you're listening right now, definitely check out the show notes and connect with Greg. And I just want to thank you again for so much of what you gave today and just so much value. And I just really appreciate you sharing the stories and just giving so many actionable steps that people can take to move their life forward. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure, Kelly. Your energy is palpable,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I think we made good on our intention to create something of value together.
That's right. I think we manifested a really good episode right now. So I can't wait to get it out there so more people can continue to elevate their energy in the same process. So again, thank you so much. And for anyone who's listening, please share this with someone who could also benefit from it. And thank you again for spending your precious time with us.